Hi, hello, welcome back. I recently just came back from vacation, but since coming back, I have since picked up Shatter Me, and this was the people's choice. I put out a video on Instagram and TikTok, which feel free to follow me on there if you want to. Anyways, I put a video out on both those apps and basically said, choose my next read. Shatter Me won, which I kind of expected it to win just given how popular the book and the series is. But for whatever reason, I missed this book and the series during the height of its popularity, like in the 2010s. It's definitely had a revival with Book Talk, but I also missed that revival too. I didn't already know, for whatever reason, Shatter Me is a YA dystopian novel. I think it was published in 2011 or some year close to that. Definitely at that time, YA dystopian novels were at its peak. There was the Hunger Games, there was the Divergent series, there was the Maze Runner series, and so much more. And Shatter Me just fell right in the middle of all of that. But this book follows the main character, Juliet. We find out right off the bat that she's been imprisoned and isolated for almost a year. And as a result of that, she is not at her best. She is really going through it, not having a good time at all. And also we learn that I think if people touch her or if she touches other people, they could get hurt. But I don't quite know the extent of all of that. I'm only 76 pages in, so I'm sure I'll find out later on the extent of her powers. But anyways, she is imprisoned until one day she gets a cellmate who turns out to be Adam. However, Adam is not really her cellmate. He works for or is part of the reestablishment, which I've come to understand as essentially the new order, new government of the world, and they're not good. They tricked people into working with them and fighting for them, and basically the world is dying. She finds out that the reestablishment has new plans for her and essentially wants to use her as a weapon for their dystopian plans. I feel like so far this book, like I said, is definitely a product of its time. The writing style is very she believed, he lied core, and it definitely makes me laugh at sometimes, but also at the same time, I'm kind of here for it. It feels a little nostalgic to me. The world building is pretty simple so far. We are strictly through Juliet's perspective, but I think I'll like this book. I don't think I'll absolutely love it, but I have heard that the books get better the more you read on, especially after the first book. So I'll definitely read on and continue with the series, because once I start something, I can't hold myself but finish it. But like I said, I'm on page 76, chapter 13. I feel like I could really finish this book if I really wanted to. It's short, it's very fast paced, it's really easy to read. The writing style, it's very dyadic, so it's like, I did this and then I did that. So very easy to get through in one sitting if you really wanted to. With that being said, I'm gonna continue on reading. Okay, I'm jumping on for a quick update because I have a prediction. If you don't want like literally any spoilers about this, feel free to skip ahead by like a minute. I don't think what I'm going to say is going to be a spoiler, but essentially one of the guards from the reestablishment where she's staying right now touches her, and Juliet's power affects him, hurts him, takes him down. And what we come to find out is she actually kind of likes using her power. She's in a sort of conundrum because she doesn't want to hurt people, but when she uses her power, it actually feels good. Anyways, after that, she is talking to Warner, and he basically implies that she's lying to herself because She's saying she doesn't want to hurt people, she doesn't want to use her power, she doesn't want anyone to touch her, but she hesitated breaking free from the guard when the guard touched her. So he's implying that she actually likes to use her powers. And of course, Juliet's like, no, of course not. I don't like to hurt people. But that just brings me on to my prediction of the love triangle, because I feel like, based on all my knowledge of reading YA series growing up, I feel like Warner is going to take the side of, you should use your power and not be afraid of it, and that whole side. And I feel like Adam is going to be on the complete opposite side of advocating for Juliet to not use her power. That's just my prediction. We'll see if it actually follows through. Anyways, I'm just going to get back to reading. Hi, it's actually the next day. I ended up finishing the rest of Shatter Me, the bulk of it last night, and then the remaining of it earlier today. And boy, do I have some thoughts about this book. I just finished my Goodreads review of this and posted it, so I feel like I have most of my thoughts and opinions in order. But I started off my Goodreads review with, the biggest crime with this book is that it's just a product of its time. The writing, the plot, it just feels very 2010s. It feels very Tumblr. It feels very YA dystopian. And some of parts of it didn't really age the best, in my opinion. Now, a book being a product of its time, do I think it's necessarily a bad thing? No, not always. It's honestly a little bit fun and nostalgic to read about, because I read a lot of books during that time. But with that being said, it's just not as timeless as it could be, or as unique as it could be. I think I mentioned this in the beginning of this video as well, but I missed the hype when it was first published. I also missed the resurgent hype on Book Talk a couple years ago, but better late than never to read this book in the series. And I try to keep in mind that I probably shouldn't be too harsh on the book. It is a YA novel. I'm not really in that target demographic anymore, so I try to keep that in mind for my thoughts and review of this. However, with that being said, I did like some parts of Shatter Me. I actually kind of liked the strike through, repetitive thought writing style. Shatter Me starts off with Juliet being imprisoned and isolated for a year, so obviously she's not in the best mental state, and I feel like the writing style, at least in the beginning, reflects that. However, at the same time, it definitely felt more Tumblr, and I felt like it could have been a little bit more unique. For example, of some of the writing style, I think Juliet is talking to Warner on page 66, but she says, "Please, in strike through, don't let go of me." In normal writing, "Put me down," I tell him. And then some back and forth happens, and Warner says, "I have to watch you, Juliet." He says my name like a whisper. In strike through, "My heart, my heart, my heart." Another example on page 20 for chapter 4, the whole page is just, I'm not insane, over and over again, strike through, until the very last, "I'm not insane," which is not struck through. So I'm not going to go through every example of this in the book, but you kind of get the idea of just the style of writing. I feel like it was a unique-ish concept, but it could have been executed a little bit better. Also, this book definitely felt more like a character study of Juliet, and definitely left more to be desired of the plot and world building. In true YA dystopian fashion, basically the whole world is run by this new government, and the world is dying and everything's bad. So it's not very unique in that sense, and I don't think the circumstances are that unique either. It just kind of feels like a bunch of YA dystopian tropes and books meshed together all in one. Also, the world itself is just not very descriptive. There were so many times throughout this book where I was just confused. Like, I was confused about the sense of scale in the world and like what the outside world looked like when Juliet was outside. You definitely have to fill in a lot of the blanks with your own imagination, which can be a good thing sometimes, but I feel like there could have been more description added in order to get a better feel of the world itself. In terms of the characters, starting with Juliet, I kind of feel indifferent about Juliet. She was really going through a rough time throughout most of this book, and I felt a lot of sympathy toward her and the circumstances that she was put in by others. There was some character development on her end at the very end of the book, but I felt like there could have been more. I don't hate her, but I just don't love her. But I could see potential character development and growth in the future books. Adam is nice, but I feel like he was untrustworthy right off the bat. And Juliet's inner thoughts and monologue definitely confirm that, because she even has some doubts about him too. I wish it was a little bit more discreet, because I feel like it's hinting towards something that's going to happen later. And finally, Warner. He is such a character. I honestly don't understand how I'm supposed to like him. There were so many times throughout this book where he was just bonkers. I don't want to spoil anything of exactly what he says or does throughout the book, but it was just insane. But I do know that Warner's probably going to have some sort of redemption arc and or character growth or development. It was definitely hinted at several times throughout this book by Juliet, so I guess I'll see and wait until that happens. Also, if you've read this book, am I the only one that found the ending really anticlimactic? Like, it didn't leave me with the feeling that I need to pick up the next book immediately. I felt like it should have ended a little bit sooner, so it had more tension and more of like a cliffhanger type ending. I know I kind of just complained about this book a lot, but I didn't think it was absolutely terrible. I liked parts of it. Like I mentioned, I like some of the writing style. I just thought it could have been executed a little bit better. Also, the book had a really nice flow to it. I feel like it was very fast to get through, and it's a very bingeable book. The world itself is not hard to understand, and I do see a potential for the future books in the series to expand on the plot and world building that was outlined in Shatter Me. I definitely will be reading the next books in the series. I have them borrowed from the library currently. I also can't DNF books, especially series, for the life of me. I need to read it. I need to find out what's going to happen next. I don't know. It's a me problem. But I think in terms of a rating, I think I'm going to give it 3 stars for now. I honestly might lower it a little bit more later, but I don't know. I feel like it was okay. I liked it. I just didn't love it. But those are my final thoughts on Shatter Me. I hope you enjoyed seeing me read this book, hearing me talk about it. I definitely had a lot of fun reading it, even though I had some complaints about it. But anyways, if you made it this far, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, feel free to follow me on other platforms. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Goodreads. All the same account name at MaddieReads6. But until next time, see you later.